we talked about this year's draft. Well, what about the other year's draft? I'm pretty sure that there's
Oh,
some very very interesting moments in there. You
right.
kind of talked about it. Let's leave with that. So,
Yeah.
how about the Steve Francis moment? What do you remember most about the Steve Francis moment?
Yeah, he was just like he publicly stated that he didn't want to play for Vancouver.
I've never been to Vancouver,
Like,
but I'm guessing it's cold there. Maybe
I
that's why
heard
he
it's a
didn't want to
beautiful
go.
city though. I heard my wife's been to Vancouver. I heard it's
Yeah.
beautiful, but I mean, I don't know. Probably because that time I mean the Vancouver Grizzlies have always been not they before they moved to Memphis they didn't really have a lot of success.
No, no. I mean,
15 wins, 20 wins.
I gotta give them their props. They got one of my favorite jerseys of all time, though. I gotta say that teal jersey that they had,
The teal
the one
one,
with the
yeah.
grizzly, yeah, the Bright Reeves era teal jersey.
That
That's one
was
of my
it.
favorites.
Yeah. So I guess that's the reason why Steve Francis didn't want to play there.
So
But
he said
just the
he
uh,
basically said he had a desire to be closer to home, and he
yeah.
believed that the team was not a good fit for his career aspirations, whatever that meant.
And the thing is also they had Mike Bibby.
At the time, at
So
number two,
I'm not
right?
sure
Yeah,
why they
yeah.
drafted another point guard.
Well, you always gotta go best player, right? You got
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing. That's the thing you gotta do.
Mhm.
Draft the best player available. I get
Right.
it. So, but imagine Bibby and Francis on the same team, man.
Yeah.
That would have been the same with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got that was the Byron Davis draft as well, dude.
Right.
So who went in that draft? So you got Steve Francis number two,
Elton
Byron Davis
Brand,
number
number
three,
one. Yeah.
Lamar Odom number four.
Modem.
You got Wally
Wally
Zerbiak number
Zerbiak.
six, Rip Hamilton.
Rip Hamilton. That was one of the good draft classes too.
Well, eventually, yeah. And if you
Yeah.
look at it in hindsight, but at the time, I think that was pretty bad because only Elton Brand really panned out. But yeah, you had Ron
Right.
Artest there, you had
Yeah,
Andre
yeah.
Kirilenko. But yeah, man, the Grizzlies went best player available, and that was at the
Right.
time Steve Francis. I would
Yeah.
have taken him over Baron Davis too, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But
Right.
one of my favorite memories in the draft is essentially I mentioned Zach Levine being disappointed,
Oh.
right? He really
Yeah,
said
yeah.
he really said "F me" when he got picked by the Wolves. He didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because the Wolves were obviously pretty bad that time, and nobody wanted to go and all that.
Right.
But one of the most memorable moments I have in the draft. I don't know if you remember this, but Brandon Jennings when he was drafted.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember this, but Brandon Jennings was picked, right?
Yeah.
So for what
Number 10, right?
yeah, he was one of the most hyped
yeah.
prospects at the time.
Yeah.
And what happened was,
Because he skirted the rule also. Because that was that was the first year that you couldn't jump straight out of high school.
yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I think he's the first high school player to play in the EuroLeague before going to
Right.
the NBA.
Yeah.
So he was essentially drafted in 2009. And what happened here was he did it. He thought he was slipping in the draft. He ended up getting picked number 10. But at
Right.
first he thought he was slipping in the draft. So what he did was he actually went out shopping while the draft was going on.
Oh, wow.
All right, he was shopping at the draft was going on. But then they called him to say he was picked. David Stern called his name and he wasn't there.
Oh, wow.
So remember when the draftees are on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And when they get picked, they get shown, they hug their parents, whatever,
Yeah.
hug their agent,
Yeah.
put the hat on and go up to the stage.
Right.
They're coming from the floor, going up the stage. Brandon Jennings came from backstage, and
Oh,
raising
wow.
his arms up. He got drafted because that was the way he just came in. So it's just a boss, man.
Wow.
It was just funny how he ended up there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember Ney. I'm gonna get to one of my favorite Nick draft moments in a bit, but the other
Uh-huh.
thing was Nene was getting drafted by the Knicks.
Who's this?
He was Nene.
Nene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the Brazilian guy play for the Nuggets. So he was
Nuggets,
originally
yeah.
drafted by the Knicks.
Right.
And we all know the draft happens in New York, and we
Yeah.
all know how Knicks fans are. They're very
Yeah.
passionate.
Right.
They started booing him. Him as he went up. and the name was Dancing, man. As he went up the stage, he was dancing to the booze, and that was funny.
Oh my
But
god.
that's not even the best one. Look, this is I'm
Mm.
gonna share something. We're just gonna probably gonna blurt it out because there's some
Yeah.
profanities in this video. But one of my favorite moments in NBA draft history is this. 10 years ago, Kristaps Porzingis
Oh,
was selected by the Knicks in number 4,
right.
and the Lakers have a lot of celebrity super fans. We all know that.
Yeah.
We got Shaq, we got
Yeah.
Flea,
Jack.
among
Yeah.
others. The
Yeah.
Knicks have
Mm.
Spike Lee as their number one.
Right.
There's one prominent guy, but one of my favorite Knicks fans is Michael Rappaport,
Right.
right? The comedian Michael Rappaport.
Yeah.
So context here is that they drafted Kristaps Porzingis with the number 4 pick, and Michael Rappaport has this to say. You might want to keep your volume down for
Yeah.
this, but this was one of the most funniest things I've ever heard.
What the fuck did they do? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? I never heard of fucking Latvia. You drafted this fucking kid. You stupid motherfucker, you.
It's gotta
Oh my
be
god, Mike Rappaport. Oh.
only Michael Rappaport can get away with that rap.
Yeah.
I just
Oh my god.
and it's stuck. That's his nickname. If I go to I'm gonna go to Basketball Reference right now, right?
Right.
I'm gonna put my screen back on just so you can see I'm not doing anything weird.
Uh.
I'm pretty sure that they did this. Let's do Basketball Reference. Porzingis, because I'm pretty sure it's this. It's in here. I hope it is. Oh, they didn't put it. That sucks. They gotta put Tingus Pingus in here.
Oh,
It's not
yeah.
here. But this is one of the biggest. This is one of the funniest nicknames ever. Next to Cormagetti, fan made nicknames, but Tingus Pingus is always what I call him.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite nicknames of all time.
Right.
Now, we mentioned the Steve Francis situation. Do you remember any other trades that happened in the NBA draft? Because there's a lot of them before. I remember. What's the
it's-
one? What's the one you remember?
memory,
What's
like,
one? Yeah.
Chris Webber for Penny Hardaway.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. Do you remember the context of that one? We know that Shaq pushed for it, right?
Shaq pushed for Penny because they were together in Blue Chips over the summer, and they were just playing. And it was one of those. And I remember Shaq's interview. It was one of those movies where they would just play ball. The
Right.
director just allowed them to play ball, and so Penny was playing point guard. He's 6'7", the next Magic Johnson, and he's just lobbing it to Shaq, and Shaq's just getting all these alley oops. So it's like, man, we gotta get this guy. And so he lobbied for Penny, and
Right.
that's the reason why they traded. They traded for his rights. They initially got Chris Webber, who was the best player from that draft. Chris Webber, Fab Five.
The timeout.
The time.
The infamous
The most
timeout.
athletic power forward, of,
He was so
of
good.
that generation. Man,
He was so good. I think
What a monster.
people forget
Yeah.
how good Chris Webber was because he was pretty slow in Sacramento, right? He
Yeah,
wasn't that
yeah.
athletic in Sacramento,
Right.
But he was a beast, man. And he was a beast
Golden
in Golden
State,
State.
Chris Webber was a beast.
He was on another level, right?
That dunk
So-
over Barkley.
Oh, that's insane. That's just.
Yeah.
I mean, he had even that pose, right? That just. He just looked great, and
Yeah.
I wish that. I really wanted Chris Webber to win a ring,
Yeah.
but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
One more thing that before we move on from this, so I got one more for you. So
Yeah.
we all know that right now, one of the things about the draft, apart from getting drafted, is how you look. Really, it's
Yeah.
it's a one of once in a lifetime opportunity,
Right.
and you gotta look
You
great,
gotta look
man.
sharp. You gotta stand out.
So this is one of my memories. This is the 2003 draft. Look at these guys right here.
Oh, yeah,
Look
LeBron.
LeBron's white suit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell this is from Carmelo. But bro, look at how oversized these suits are compared to what
Oh
they're
my
wearing
goodness.
now.
Yeah.
Look at D Wade.
Yeah.
It's like they're wearing something from the dads used to wear something like that.
Who's the guy
Hydra looks
beside
so.
Mello? That is a huge pinstripe suit.
I don't even know who this is, man. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I don't know who that is. So let's check 2003 draft.
So there's
I'm,
Mello, there's Bosch behind him, there's Heinrich, the guy behind between Mello and the Heinrich.
all right, so these are probably the first 15 drafted, right?
Right.
So that's Michael Sweetney. That's Michael Sweetney right there.
Yeah.
Is that Jarvis Hayes? Yeah, that's Jarvis Hayes, bro.
It's Jarvis Hayes.
I
Yeah.
forgot about that guy. Jarvis Hayes
Yeah.
was drafted 10th. He's
Yeah.
obviously no longer playing. He
Dude,
played for.
what about the guy in the middle? One of the biggest what ifs, man. TJ Ford.
TJ Ford, man, I love
TJ
watching this
Ford.
guy. He was so
Dude,
quick.
in college, like when he was playing for Texas,
Yeah,
he was like 6'2", 6'1", but he was a scorer.
yeah, it was pretty. He's a scorer,
Yeah.
pretty quick, undersized
Yeah.
though. But I
Yeah.
think that's the problem with him, right? He was very undersized, and
Mm.
but at this point, man, it shouldn't matter. He was only 6 foot 165, but he
Right.
was pretty undersized. But
Uh,
at the very least, right? He didn't end up with what we expected him to be.
mhm.
But have a look at this. At least he gave us this moment, bro. Have a look at that. Bro. Have a look at that.
Damn.
Do they need to bring this back or what?
Oh my goodness.
It's insane. It's insane. Look at it. These are 3/4 now. These aren't even
Yeah.
shorts anymore. And the funny
Yeah.
thing is, kids, we used to wear this too. I
Yeah.
remember I used to wear this.
Dude, yeah, seriously.
Look at that. Look at that, man. Look up. He's almost wearing pants already. That's just funny, man. Look, one more thing is, I don't know if you remember Lonnie Walker's look. So Lonnie Walker,
Lonnie
we all
Walker.
know how Lonnie Walker looks right now. He's got
Right.
a fade. He's got I guess, a pretty tame hair.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
back when he was a rookie, when he was drafted, I don't know if you guys remember this. I'll show you real quick what he used to look like. So this is what Lonnie Walker used to look like. He had this hair. When he was drafted, right? This is what he looked like, bro. Because of his hair, his hat wouldn't fit. He pretty much wore
Oh.
that. It looked like a souvenir from Disneyland or something, really.
Oh, sh-
But yeah, that was one of those memories that
oh.
you know.
Another one was Jalen Rose's red suit.
Oh, that was great. That was great. I think
Yeah.
we need to show that.
Yeah.
I think we want to show that. So Jalen
Jalen
Rose
Rose
had
is-
this. He's pretty much. Oh, here's a picture of Lonnie Walker. I forgot to show. So Lonnie
Yeah.
Walker draft. This is what you show. So he had this look at how the hat is just floating. It looks like a cartoon.
Right.
But that was it. But yeah, Jalen Rose pinstripe suit. I don't know if this, look at that.
Yeah.
Looks like a boss, man. That's just
That's
just
some boss
insane.
right there.
That's right. It's just amazing how this is iconic, man. They're still talking
Yeah.
about this look now. That's
Yep.
how iconic it was. Now, before we move on, I just want to put one more moment in here because it's very very pivotal.
Mm.
90 was it 95 or 96? Oh, that was 95. KG. Kevin Garnett being drafted out of high school.
Right.
What do you think the impact of that was?
Dude, like before Kevin Garnett, there was just like 2 or 3 other high school draftees, and that was back in like the 70s.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really it wasn't really a thing. But then Kevin Garnett comes in, and he's like, he's drafted out of high school. Then the following year it's Kobe, and then the year after it's T-Mac, and then the year after it's I think Rashard Lewis or something.
Among others, yeah.
Yeah, so
He really
it
opened the
kinda-
floodgates.
Yeah, it became a trend that high school basketball players would be drafted, and of course, the first number 1 pick out of high school was Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown, bona fide scrub. I think that was
So-
probably, yeah.
That was like Michael Jordan's worst moment as a GM.
That's right. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, and I watched. So there was a time when Kwame Brown had really interesting videos
Yeah.
when he was beefing with Steven Jackson and
Oh, he
Matt
was
Barnes.
beefing with Stack.
Yeah. So the story here is if you believe Kwame's story, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Right.
I wouldn't put this blame on Michael Jordan. Here's why. So apparently, what happened there was that that pick was supposed to be traded for Elton Brand. That number one pick was supposed to be traded by the Bulls to Elton Brand, and they had
Right.
a deal in place to do that. But for some reason, the owner of the Wizards at the time decided to pull back on the deal, and that's why you have Kwame Brown. And there was number one was always going to be Kwame Brown in that
Right.
in that year. It just so happens that the trade didn't go through. Kwame Brown should have been on the Bulls. He could have been given a lot more leeway than what he did with the Wizards. I mean, can you imagine an 18-year-old kid playing with Michael Jordan at age 39, who's
Yeah.
seen all these wars, who expect this much from teammates? Imagine the
Right.
pressure that exerts on a guy like Kwame Brown.
Yep.
So I got this is why I kind of tend to believe him on this one, but it is what it is. It's one of the worst draft picks ever.
So I realized that year it was 1-2 high school. It's Kwame Brown and Tyson Chandler.
Tyson Chandler, yeah, that was
Yeah.
it. And both,
Wow.
Bulls could have gotten both.
Yeah.
Tyson Chandler and Kwame Brown on the same team.
Yep.
That would have been insane, man. That would have been a good young team to just build upon. But
Yeah.
didn't happen. Here we are. You know, it is what it is.